So last year I went to Central America, specifically Guatemala and Honduras, and I took a Spanish class in a local Spanish school. It was actually pretty cool because the class was outside and they also made coffee and had a local community garden. The town was in Lake Atitlan, which is actually a lake on the top of a volcano with a bunch of other volcanoes around it, but I digress. Basically, I wanted to learn Spanish for a few different reasons. The first one being travel, of course. Secondly, I guess I just wanted a new challenge after learning French. And lastly, Spanish just sounds cool and it looks like fun. So I decided to challenge myself to learn as much Spanish as humanly possible in 1 month. And in this video, I'm going to go over materials, techniques, classes, and all of that good stuff that I used to learn Spanish for the last 6 weeks. But I can say I really improved my Spanish. Like, I was at a 0 level, so it would have been impossible to not improve my Spanish. As for classes, I decided to do Lingoda's Language Sprint Challenge. Why Lingoda? Well, that's because that's what I used to learn French almost 3 years ago. Wow. That went by really quick. And now I live in France, I work in France, I speak French all the time. So I figured, I know it works, let's do it again. And if you don't know what Lingoda is or what their language learning sprints are, I've already made a video which I can link in the description if you're interested. But basically it's a type of intensive where you can do a class every single day for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, it depends what they're offering at the moment. And if you attend all of the classes, you get rewards like classes or refunds, things like that. If you are interested in checking out Lingoda, I do have a discount code for you where you save money, and who doesn't love saving money? And it really helps out my small channel if you do, but either way, I hope you find some value in this video. I'm about to jump into my first Lingoda Spanish class, and I'm low-key a bit nervous because my level of Spanish is really, non-existent. So I feel like the first few classes will be a little bit overwhelming, but then I'm gonna get into the rhythm of it. Okay, wish me luck, guys.
Attention, don't you worry if now you're making mistakes to know if it's masculine or feminine. This is normal, okay? You're going to learn it naturally.
I wanted to jump on and just talk a bit about some of the tools and things that I'm using to learn Spanish to cover every aspect of Spanish, like reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Also some different tips and advice that I have picked up from learning French and now learning a new language again. For speaking, obviously I'm using Lingoda. It's just great because I can talk to a native Spanish speaker, a teacher, and so they can correct your pronunciation as well, which is really helpful. For vocabulary and memorizing, I'm using an app called Anki. I've already talked about this before because I love it. It's free. It's just an app that you download and you can make your own flashcards, but my favorite thing is that you can actually download decks that people have already created. So for example, you can find the top 1000 most popular Spanish words. Also, you can grade yourself, which makes it possible for you to check if you're actually improving or not. So I will leave in the description some Spanish decks that I've found and that are super useful, and you can download them straight onto the app. Let's talk about reading. Obviously, flashcards are really great for vocabulary, but reading is important too, and especially because it's a fun way to learn more vocabulary. Flashcards can get quite repetitive, you know what I mean? But there's one major problem. When you're a complete beginner like me, how the heck are we supposed to read an actual book? I mean, we could just buy kids' books for 5-year-olds, and you know what, I have done this in French, but honestly, it gets pretty boring. But when I was learning French, I found these books by someone called Ollie Richard. He also has a YouTube channel if you want to check him out, and he basically created books in so many different languages: French, Spanish, German, so many languages, with a bunch of short stories for beginners that are actually interesting. And on top of that, he intentionally uses the top most used words in the short stories. And also there are tests at the end of each short story to test your vocabulary. So his books are really created for people who are trying to learn a language, and well, that's me. I will link his books below as well, but if you are looking for something free, you can find some short stories online. Literally just search the language you're looking for and search short stories. You're not going to have as many options and they might not be as tailored to learning the language, but you can find stuff, and that's great as well. Also, another thing that I found, if you have a Kobo or an e-reader, I have an iPad, you can even use your phone actually, but you can find free books online, like short stories or kids books, and usually on e-readers, if you tap on a word or something like that, it can give you the definition. What I used to do with this book is I would literally read it and highlight all the words that I didn't know, and then I would take those words, look up the definition, and I would put it into my flashcard app, and then I would test myself on the bus on the way to work. Next topic is writing, and this kind of goes along with language exchange as well. When I think about writing, I think pen, paper, and literally writing in the language that you want to learn. And I did try to do this. I tried. But let's be honest here, how often are we actually writing with the pen and paper? Like, not that often. So realistically, if you want to learn writing, I think messaging is like one of the best ways that you can learn. Because let's face it, most of the time we're on our phones, we're writing messages, we're writing emails. You just gotta try to not cheat too much with the spell checker. So I use this app called HelloTalk. You might have heard of it before, but basically it's like a kind of like social media for language exchange. You can make posts. It's kind of like Facebook, to be honest, but for people wanting to learn a different language. You select which language you want to learn. You can start a conversation. They also have tools like you can tap on the text and it translates. You can send audio. It's also totally free. Also, if you want to meet other people learning Spanish or learning the language that you want to learn. Also, if you're not living in the country where you're trying to learn the language, this can be quite helpful because honestly, like it's hard when you're not living in the country to find people to practice with. Next up is listening. Can you guess what I'm going to say? That's right. YouTube. YouTube is honestly the best for finding, content in the language you're trying to learn. There is so much content on YouTube. I mean, obviously I like YouTube because I make videos on YouTube and it's fun. If you have literally any question about grammar, Spanish grammar, like vocabulary, any language really, you can just search it on YouTube and there'll be someone with a pretty good explanation. I will link some of my favorite Spanish teachers or Spanish YouTube channels below. And the final category that I've just thought about is unique learning methods. One thing I do is on Instagram, I follow a bunch of different accounts where they basically post content about learning Spanish. I'll put some examples on the screen, but you can find loads of these accounts. And honestly, it's just great because if you're scrolling Instagram or just, wasting some time, you will scroll upon these posts and it'll just make you think and just kind of puts the language in your face. Next up, Twitch. There are a whole bunch of Twitch accounts with every language you can imagine and talking about any subject you could imagine. Next one isn't that unique, but Spotify. If you have Spotify, I wouldn't just like subscribe for Spotify just for this, but you can find a bunch of podcasts on Spotify in Spanish or any other language. I'll put down some of my favorites, and this is just great if you're going for a walk, exercising, doing something where you kind of don't really need to focus. And lastly, Netflix. Honestly, there are some great Spanish series and show on Netflix, like Narcos, Money Heist, Elite. Honestly, even if you're not learning Spanish, these series are pretty good. You should check them out. Okay, now let's do some more Spanish learning. ¿Dónde está Nueva Zelanda?
Nueva Zelanda está en Asia.
No.
Asia.
No.
No.
No está.
Quiero preguntar cómo está y responder.
¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo
Respondo.
estás? ¿Cómo
Repite,
estás?
yo soy profesor.
Yo
O,
soy-
por ejemplo, soy Bonnie, soy australiana y no recuerdo, tú eres ingeniera de software.
Buenos días,
Buenos días.
¿cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y tú?
¿Tu nombre es?
Bonnie.
¿De dónde eres?
Yo soy de Australia, pero vivo en Francia 2 años.
Desde hace 2 años.
¿Cómo se dice 2021? 2021?
Did you prepare the material before the lesson, Bunny?
No.
Don't worry, okay? Don't worry. Be happy.
Okay, before I jump into some more classes and show you guys that, I just wanted to give you a couple more tips that I've been using to learn Spanish. First thing I did was print out a massive conjugation table with all of the most used tenses and the most used verbs. You can find some really aesthetic looking things to print out, and you can just put this near your desk or wherever really, and it just kind of keeps it in your face and keeps you reminded. Also, taking notes is really important. I've got my notebook here. Just the act of writing down the notes helps you memorize what the thing is. And find music in your target language that you like. Honestly, for me, it's not even about listening, really. It's more like the music sounds good and that motivates me to keep learning. And I wanted to just give a couple of things to not do while you're learning a language. First of all, don't feel embarrassed by speaking. Honestly, I know at the beginning it's hard, but the more you speak, the better you're gonna get. And adding on to that, don't worry if you have an accent. Honestly, accents are cute. As long as you're understood, it's fine. Also, don't compare yourself. I used to be guilty of this when I was learning French. I would jump into a class and I would think, oh my god, I'm the worst in this class. It's embarrassing. But honestly, just chuck that out of your head because everyone's at a different stage in their learning. And lastly, don't overwhelm yourself with resources. I've given you guys my favorite resources. You can use that if you want. But some mistakes I have done is like downloading a billion apps, overwhelming myself with like too much content online. I'm really that kind of person that just like makes a really long list that will never be achievable. And then I just stress out over it when I should just be doing the work. You know what I mean? Right, those are my wise words. Let's jump into some more Spanish learning.
25. Muy bien. Ok. 60.
60.
Un poco más difícil. 83.
Okay, that's 8. 20.
80.
Okay. So that finishes up my 30 days or 1 month-ish learning Spanish. So with that being said, let's watch a video of where I'm at now versus where I was a few weeks ago.
Más. Un momento.
Plus
Más.
más. Hola, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Bonnie y soy australiano, pero vivo en Francia desde hace casi 3 años.
Patience.
No lo sé.
Your name.
Oh,
Your
name.
Ajá, el nombre.
El nombre. Quiero aprender español para viajar en Centroamérica y España.
¿Qué español?
Porque my brother,
Mi hermano.
vive next to Honduras. Tengo 25 años, soy ingeniero de software y tengo 4 hermanos y una hermana. Estoy aprendiendo español durante 3 semanas. Gerard Piqué. Y no es fácil, pero es fun. Alright, that's the end of the video. If you found it useful, feel free to give it a like, comment, follow me on Instagram if you want. And if you are thinking of checking out Lingoda, I do have a discount code in the description. Good luck with your language learning, and I'll see you in my next video.